Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. To follow us on Instagram, go to No Name Music Cast Podcast. To send us an email, it's nonamemusiccast@gmail.com. And to visit our website, go to nonamemusiccast.com. Now, on with the show. Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And a passionate conversation was had by all before we hit record and play this evening. But we're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about fun things. We're going to talk about things that make us happy. So I'm going to hand it straight over to Joy.
True story. I might have forgot if it was or not my topic. So I did all the research and found out because Tim is actually the brains behind the operation. Joy just shows up and says fun stuff. He was like, Joy, is that your topic? I was like, great, I'll save it for the next time. So with that being said, I have been doing like underrated women, and I had two artists I want to speak about. Weirdly enough, they're both Swedish, which probably doesn't surprise anyone.
Of course.
But I saw a little bit of music news that I could not let go by. You guys won't get this 3, 4, or 5 weeks, so it's probably old news. But because we just did this episode, which was in fact my topic, the Shania Twain. Did you know they're doing a biopic for Shania Twain, Tim?
I did not know that. Who's going to play Shania Twain?
It has not been officially announced. So basically, Sony is developing a musical biopic simply titled Shania, which is beautiful, chronicling her life and the career of a country pop icon, Shania Twain. The film is being written and directed by Leah McKendrick, which I can't tell you who that is, nor do I know if she's a good director. I don't know things when it comes to that kind of stuff. With Twain, though, Shania Twain is going to be on set actively helping push this through. And so specific details and casting announcements are being kept under wraps. But the biopic is expected to span her incredible journey from her difficult poverty-stricken, upbringing in Ontario to becoming the best-selling female country pop artist of all time. Now, I will say, her story is crazy. And if you don't know that, she basically she raised her brothers and her sisters. They were very poor. And when she tried to get into country, she was a little bit of a firecracker like Joy, and maybe didn't play by all the fancy rules and, did the things that not every woman in country ever did. Not really dissimilar to Dolly, but she did it in a different way. So with that being said, I really do think it would be an interesting story. I really hope they do it justice. We've talked about the good and the bad when it comes to the biopics, because there are good and bad. I stand by the fact that I think the Rocket Man biopic, amazing. Could care less about the Elvis one, Tim, but never even looked that up. We talked about Bohemian Rhapsody. It's good and it's bad. There were some really good and some really bad in that, I think. So we liked it, though. So I really hope they do it really good justice, because her story is very interesting. And to be completely transparent with you, it'd be nice to have a biopic about a woman. There's none out there.
That's true. And an icon such as Shania Twain.
And I don't mean that to say we should just have a biopic because she's a woman. I don't want you to take it like that. But an iconic woman who came from rags to riches really did break a lot of stereotypes. That's the thing. For those who don't know, when she tried to do Man, I Feel Like a Woman, and she was flipping the Robert Palmer, she was getting so much pushback. And she said, no, I'm going to do this. And it became one of the most iconic things in the world. I've said for years, I even posted on my Facebook the other day, that Let's Go Girls, if you put that on, women will go to war. They will fight everyone. Whatever's in that, whatever she likes that with, Tim, is amazing. And so I'm very happy. I really hope it's done. I'm holding out hope that it is done beautifully, because I think it's a great story that will be wonderful. And I will go see it in theaters if it looks good. Now, we're probably talking 2, 3, 4 years, because it was just announced yesterday. But fingers crossed, Tim. Fingers crossed.
There we go. Well, let's hope it's going to be good, and let's hope it comes out soon. And in fact, let's hope it doesn't just get shelved, because a lot of these projects get announced and then they can't get funding, or the director changes, or the script gets rewritten 52 times. So let's keep our fingers crossed, eh?
With it being Shania, I think that it probably will come out. Fingers crossed. She weirdly has had a little bit of a resurgence, I think, as a person because she's got back into music after the lupus and stuff, and she's one of those people that like she has a very I don't know if it's like a cult like following because I don't even want to say that. I think she's just universally liked. It's kind of like an Elton John of sorts. Like she's just a universally liked person. So I think that because when I say cult like following, I think of something like Deep Purple, right, Tim, where there is a very cult like following. Deep Purple? Is that the word I was going to say? Oh, Electric Light Orchestra kind of cult following, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I realized that didn't come out the way I wanted it to. But you know what I'm saying? Those kind of people have like a cult like following where there's a very, or even the Grateful Dead. I know that is like someone people would argue with, but I do think they have a cult following. But Shania is one of those universally loved, I think. Don't come for me, internet. My father might disagree, but
she's almost in Dolly territory.
Yes. Well, I loved, and I will take it away. I'll let Tim take it away because we spoke about Shania very heavily in the last episode. If you haven't listened, get back. But what I was going to say though is, she's one of those people that like everybody kind of likes, everybody kind of loves her music. It's universally, but I would say the one thing that I really thought was super cute, and I'll stand by this, and even if you're not in the big social media realm, there was a very cute genre. It was like Mama said it was okay to do whatever. And it was like Shania's, it wasn't Shania, I'm sure it was probably one of her publicists or whatever. They did a video and it said, Mama said it was okay to go from country to pop. And Mama was Dolly Parton.
There you go. Dolly saving the day yet again.
So anyway, just thought that was super sweet. With that being said, Tim, I will let you take it away from here.
Okay, so I have one music news item. This came out today, and again, you'll get this way after the fact, so this may be old news by the time you hear this. But apparently the Prince estate is releasing a posthumous album called Timeless, featuring unreleased songs. Now, as many people know, Prince had a huge archive of music. He was always recording music. There's probably dozens and dozens of albums in the Prince archives that we've not heard yet. But the Prince estate have decided to release this album. And what it is a collection of music through Prince's life from 1977 through to 2016, in fact, just before we sadly lost Prince. And it's like a snapshot of his career throughout those years. And all of this music is completely unreleased. And there will be, of course, CDs, it will be streaming. And for those people who live in the Stone Age, it will be available on vinyl too.
What's funny, though, is so I am doing a software conversion, and Tim knows this. And one of the people I'm doing software conversion lives in Austin, Texas, which if you don't know much about Austin, Texas, they have a pretty big music scene. Guess who's been listening to our podcast, Tim?
Somebody in Austin, Texas.
Mike, if you're listening.
Hello.
All right. Well, we'll let Tim take it from here. I'll stop distracting everybody related to anything Tim's actually trying to talk about. What is your topic today, sir?
Okay, so a topic which comes up very occasionally is live albums. And you normally find most artists at some point in their career have released a live album or a number of live albums, in fact. And often there's a debate about how live are live albums, but that's not something that we're going to go into today. But I thought we could do an episode on the greatest live albums of all time. Now, many of these artists are legendary artists, and in fact, the live albums that they've released are incredibly legendary too. So I'm going to go through the ones that I think that you'll be familiar with. We can talk about those live albums, and we'll see what happens from there.
I'll probably be talking about, like, I don't know, how your car works or something 3 weeks into this, 3 weeks into it, 3 hours into this. I'm already on it, Tim. All right. Well, let's start with wherever you want to go with this.
Okay, so the first one I'm going to talk about, this album came out in 1978. This is Thin Lizzy and the album Live and Dangerous. Now, we have spoken about Thin Lizzy before on the podcast. As we know, Phil Lynott was an Irish musician, bass player, singer, songwriter, and there was various guitar players that came through Thin Lizzy over the years, one of which being Gary Moore. This is actually the more classic lineup of Thin Lizzy in 78 without Gary Moore. And it's such a good live album. I had this on CD a number of years ago, and it's something that hasn't re-hit my permanent collection yet, but it's something that I had on the Spotify and digitally and what have you. Now, there is some controversy, as there is with a lot of these live albums, that it's not really live. But apparently, the producer of the album says that 75% of it is live. The other thing is there's a song on this track. I'm sorry, there's a song on this album. On one of the tracks, it has Huey Lewis playing harmonica. And I remember I listened to it back years ago when I bought it. I was thinking, how did Huey Lewis end up on this? And apparently, Huey Lewis and the News supported Thin Lizzy on this tour. And Thin Lizzy is a band which, friendly to the people that were supporting them. They had a friendship with Huey Lewis and the News and Huey Lewis himself. So he would sometimes get up and jam harmonica with the band.
Well, that's one of those things we talk about on this podcast. I always find it, and I know they say Hollywood is small, right, Tim? Or whatever. Hollywood, LA, whatever you want to call it. But there's sometimes in life where you're like, how did this artist come to be friends with this artist? Because in your mind, I mean, I guess Huey Lewis, mainstream pop, whatever you want to call him. I think he's a pop artist, saying it for what it is. I find like people get so worked up over the term pop, but pop literally just means popular, just in case anybody's wondering. Right, Tim? Like anything could be pop music.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I'll get on my hours. It is kind of funny. So Thin Lizzy is interesting to me because as someone who grew up in Southwest Virginia, we talked about how it's very interesting how certain artists become popular in America and versus Europe and so on in the UK, whatever you want to say, guys. I know I'm American. I know you guys are all screaming, that's not the UK, this is Europe, whatever. People overseas. But with that being said, Thin Lizzy, for whatever reason, in my brain has always been kind of an American artist. And I don't know why. I think Tim is the only reason I know they are an American artist. They come off as someone that has been kind of relatively popular. And I think the name and stuff kind of live in my kind of Americana. But to be fair, there's many other artists who have made it very, very mainstream in America, but they're actually not American. That actually happens a lot, so it's not that weird.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Gorham was an American, and he played guitar in Thin Lizzy. But again, I think it comes down to is how classic rock really is in the US mainstream. Even
Jailbreak, that song is everywhere.
Yeah, they're effectively an Irish band. I mean, you could put 96.3 ROV, and I'm sure at some point today they're going to play Boys Are Back in Town 6 times.
And that is the Boys Are Back in Town has also been redone by so many other artists. There was even it was 18. There was a pop punk artist in the early 2000s, Tim, who did it. You know what I mean? That song's been redone, I think, 40,000 times at this point. I can't even remember what the name. It doesn't, you know what I mean? I don't have to give a name to the band. You get the idea. So I think that's probably why it kind of sits in America, a kind of thing in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand that sometimes, and don't come for me internet on this if you're American, sometimes Americans do sometimes struggle with seeing things from other sides, right, Tim? Because we are in an American dominant, even people are being fed American media at other capacities, right? So I try not to be that person. I really do. But for whatever reason, I don't think I would have ever known Thin Lizzy wasn't an American band until you told me it, Tim.
There we go, yeah. Phil Lynott, famously an Irishman.
I mean, I think it's because the Boys Are Back in Town has been done by everybody and their cousin at this point in America.
I think so. I mean, it's a very common band that would be covered, and this song is a very common song that would be covered.
What is that? Hold on. Now I want to look it up. I got to give it a Goog. Who is the other one who did the version, though? God, it's going to drive me insane.
Joya is Googing on air. Live.
Covers. Hold on.
It's probably a metal band or something.
Apparently Bon Jovi did a cover for it, but they did there was
many artists have done it.
Pop punk. Oh, Atreyu. It was Atreyu in the early 2000s. They did it. It was on the B side of their covers of Doom, which I know that doesn't mean much to you. They are metal. They are metal. They're pop punk, but they're also kind of known as a little bit more hard.
Okay.
And, the song does lead itself to kind of a metal sound. It's a cool song. It's got a cool sound. I mean, if I was going to do it. Apparently, there's also a band called Happy Mondays. I don't know who Happy Mondays is, but they did a version of it too. So there you go, everybody. Bon Jovi, Atreyu, and Happy Mondays. But it's interesting though, because I am very much, did you know the Cardigans did a version of it?
I could believe that.
Everclear did a version of it. That's not shocking to me. Do you know a band called the Mountain Goats?
No, I don't.
I don't know. It sounds like something Tim would know. And next week we'll do an opening segment about the mountain goats and how they met the band Beard in Australia or something. No one joked about that. Was funny. Goats, beer. All right.
There we
how
go.
week. All right, Tim, move along.
Okay, so the next album I'm going to talk about, it doesn't necessarily come up on the greatest lists of live albums, but certainly for me, it's one of the greatest live albums of all time. This came out in 1993. This is Van Halen's Live Right Here, Right Now. Now, this is an album that came out just at the right time for me. I was contemplating buying a Music Man Van Halen guitar. Van Halen's For Unlawful Common Knowledge album came out. I saw them perform on the 92 Music Video Awards. It was all Van Halen all the time for me. I saw them at Wembley Arena on the tour for this album. And I listened to this album over and over and over again. There is also a live concert video that goes with it. And I had that on VHS and I played that to death. And then later on, I had the DVD version of it too.
I will say, every time I hear Pound Cake by Van Halen, I instantly think of Tim now. Tim is like synonymous with those two things in my brain. I don't know how to explain it. Like, and it's funny because, we've been doing this podcast 6 years now, give or take. And so, like, different things that have come up. But if I hear the song Pound Cake by Van Halen, I instantly think, oh, Tim would like this.
Yeah, I mean, Pound Cake opens For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. And in fact, Pound Cake opens this live album. Eddie Van Halen famously plays a Makita wireless drill at the beginning of this song, even though he stole that idea from Paul Gilbert, but that's beside the point.
You say a wireless drill, like an actual drill? Yeah, because
he buzzes it over the pickups. That sound at the beginning of the track is him grinding the drill.
I mean, I know what a wireless drill sounds like, but I guess I never really thought about it.
Yeah, it's a Makita. I mean, that's nerd guitar knowledge that nobody else really needs to know.
Wait, is it an actual drill or is it like a...
No, it's like a drill. It's a drill like you'd buy in Lowe's.
Okay. But what's a Makita then?
Makita is the brand.
Of drill?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying Makita was a band of... Okay, well, I got lost there in the middle, but I came back. Okay. I was like, are we talking about like an actual drill? Like if I go buy a drill at Food Lion's not going to give me a drill. Lowe's.
Yeah, Makita is a brand of tools.
Joy is not allowed to use power tools, so... Because Tim would hear a story about how a power tool went through her hand the next day, and he'd be like, who gave Joy a power tool?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I can use a screwdriver. And I have used a drill, but generally it's not advised for me as a human.
No, I wouldn't recommend you have anything to do with tools and leave that to somebody else.
To be fair, though, that's probably the funny part about it is when it comes to that kind of thing, Tim, I'm better at it. It's mostly when I have to use my feet that things go wrong. Like the brain doesn't connect with the lower part of my body. Anyway, all right. Well, that's fun. I guess I didn't know that. It's just funny because I'm happy you brought this up because for whatever reason now, every time Pound Cake comes on to me, I was like, Tim really likes this song.
Well, thank you, Joy. I mean, as you know, I'm a fan of Van Hagar more than I'm of Van Halen. I love David Lee Roth, but the best era for me is the Sammy Hagar era. And it's the third album with Sammy Hagar, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge, opening with Pound Cake. But that is probably my favorite of the Van Hagar era. And I said, this set list is For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge heavy. Doesn't have a lot from 5150. I don't think it even has anything from OU812. It's pretty much all of that new album. The interesting thing about this album is, as I said, I loved it and listened to it to death. And even to this day, I continue to listen to it. And I have several copies of it. I have a European pressing CD, US pressing CD, and I have another version all on CD because you can pick them up for next to nothing used. And why wouldn't I want every version ever pressed of For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge era live album?
We'll just tattoo it on Tim's forehead at some point.
Yeah. The problem is, way after the fact, Sammy Hagar released his autobiography. And it was at a time when him and Eddie Van Halen were not necessarily seeing eye to eye. So it's sort of warts and all about his life in, his whole life, but also in and out of Van Halen. Turns out that this album is almost all studio.
is though is it's not like this is going to sound really stupid, but just hear me out, internet. Don't come for me yet. I have a statement. It's not like, whenever you're looking at the back of a food package and, a percentage of it has to be this for them to call it organic. Like, is there any official rules on how you make something a live album?
I mean, it's a piece of art. You can call it what you like. I mean, live in the studio, live in front of an audience. I mean, it honestly doesn't really matter too much. But it did sully it a little bit for me, but I still love it. I still love this album, and it is so good. I mean, bits of it are live, but
speaking of live, Tim, so I was telling you earlier how I was talking to people in my work about you.
Yes.
And so we were talking about click tracks. And that is actually what started kind of the whole thing. And so the reason that my coworker, well, she's not my coworker, she's my employee, but I still think of them as coworkers. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Tim, I'm not one of those people who thinks that way. My coworker, who's worked there for years, and her husband is the one who was playing the guitar, and he's an amazing guitarist that I was recommending your page. He just learned how to play, where they use the numbers and the click tracks. He's like you. He kind of grew up without knowing some of that kind of stuff and has learned it as he got older. Mm-hmm. And he started playing the guitar at 6 years old, apparently. And he does a lot of stuff by ear. We were talking about click tracks. And my Gen Z employee was like, does it sound like... And she went... I was like, no, it doesn't. What are you doing? I was like, that sounds like a snare drum. What's happening? And I was like, no. I said, it's like a metronome. It's just keeping time. And I said, a lot of people don't know that when you're talking about musicians, right, Tim, that's what they hear in their ear. Maybe we need to have a click track episode or something. I don't know how we put that into songs. But for those who don't know, if you're listening to an artist, right, Tim, in real time, or if Tim and me were going to do a song together, what would you send me? You would send me a click track so we can match time. And that's just how you work and how it works. But it was just so funny because she looked at me and went, yeah, it sounds like, I was like, no, it doesn't. I didn't say it like that, but I was like, no, think more like a metronome. For lack of a better way of saying it.
Depending on the DAW you're using, you can suggest different kind of clicks. You can have snare drum hits. You can have it's normally a clave type sound, so it really pops out in the mix, so you can hear it.
But Tim, even if it were like a snare drum, you would still feel 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? She was going. And I was like,
or 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or depending on the time signature.
No, yes, of course. I know what a 3x4 is. I know what a 4x4. Don't come for me, internet. But I'm just saying, what she was doing, I was like, not quite. I said, you're on the right track. You know what I mean? But it just makes me laugh. It was just very funny because Tracy was saying her husband just kind of learned that part. And it's funny because he had playing guitar since he was 6, and he's a wonderful guitarist. It just goes to show you that people learn in different things. But I just loved her going, it sounds like, and I was like,
not necessarily.
I think I could keep time with that, Tim. But I do understand. I think she had watched a video where people were talking about it. Anyway, moral story is, Tim, you were a hot topic at my work today, if you didn't know.
Well, there we go. You should also tell people to check out my Instagram, because I haven't posted a lot to YouTube recently. And for those no-name Musicast listeners who would be potentially interested in what I post to Instagram, go to Timothy_O'Sullivan on Instagram. I try and post something every day because I'm an influencer, sort of, probably not.
So to be fair, Joy is the world's worst Instagrammer, and Tim sends her stuff 24/7, and she may go back and like all of it and reshare it 3 weeks later. I don't know what it is, Tim, about Instagram. I'm just never there. I don't know why. Anyway, moral story is, I just thought it was really funny when she said that, because I was like, I guess you can keep time with the snare drum, Tim, in theory, but who would want their click track to sound like that? I want a very clear, decisive. Are there people out there who want their click track to sound like a snare drum?
It's possible.
All right. Well, if you're in that group, go on Tim's Instagram and tell us why you want your click track to sound like a snare drum, because we don't understand it. With that being said, this is Tim's episode, and I have talked over it for 20 minutes. What's the next song or album, I guess I should say?
So this one comes from 1976. This is an absolute classic. I have this on CD and I have the expanded edition, in fact, because I like it so much. This is Peter Frampton and his fabulous live album, Frampton Comes Alive. Now, is this an album that you're familiar with?
Only because of you, because you've talked about it many times on this podcast, and you've even made me watch videos of some of the cool stuff that he did with this album. Now, Peter Frampton's one of those guys that I find very interesting. I don't know a whole lot about him outside of kind of what you've talked about. Now, this is the album where he did a lot of cool stuff, right, Tim? There was so many different things happening, and it became kind of like, I guess, iconic in the sense of like making music.
Well, he was originally the guitar player in Humble Pie. He went solo, and then he released a couple of albums sort of under his name for A&M Records, who he was signed to. And then it was suggested that he made a live album. So they recorded a concert in San Francisco. It was originally going to be a single LP, but the record company said, "Hey, let's make it a double LP." And this thing basically launched him as a solo artist, and made him the name that he is now.
Frampton and I instantly think, "Baby, I Love Your Way."
Yeah, it's so good. I mean, it's got "Show Me the Way" on there, and it's got this huge 14-minute version of "Do You Feel Like I Do." The expanded edition has got so many more tracks on it. It's got a version of Jumpin' Jack Flash. It is so good. And there's no duds on this at all. This is Frampton. This is, him at his absolute peak back in 76. Now, the interesting thing about it, in this concert and on the cover, he is playing a black Les Paul custom guitar, 3-pickup Les Paul guitar with a black finish. And that was like the iconic guitar he played on this concert. And that's a guitar he was known for many years. He was playing a concert in South America. The guitar was in a cargo aircraft. The cargo aircraft crashed. And sadly, pilots and crew and people passed away.
That's what I remembered about this. Yeah, okay, so there's something that stood out to me about this album, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Very, very sad indeed. And Peter Frampton was like, "It's just a dumb guitar. People died. I'm moving on with my life."
As you should.
Yeah. Years later, someone contacted him through his website from South America. I forget the country in South America, but saying, "Hey, I have your guitar. I'd like to give it back to you." And he's like, "What?" So they do some research, and it turns out what happened is when the aircraft crashed, the cargo was ransacked. And the guitar changed hands a few times and ended up in the hands of a local guitar player in this country in South America. The instrument was then handed down to the son, and then the son realized what it was after all these years, contacted Peter Frampton's management or Peter Mel and through the website and said, "Hey, we'd like to get it back to you." And then a deal was done. It's like, "Well, I'll send you a Gibson custom shop guitar and this amount of dollars, and we'll do a deal and trade and stuff." So anyway, eventually this guitar comes back. So he gets this guitar, and the headstock was actually burnt from the plane crash. He worked with the Gibson custom shop. It had weird electronics changed on it and all sorts of weird things, and they restored it. Now they kept the burn damage on there, and they kept some of the patina of the years. They left it on there because they felt it was telling its story to leave it. But they refretted it, put new pickups in it, rewired it, put it back to how it was. And to this day, Peter Frampton, when he gigs, he still tours and plays this particular instrument. Now, if this is something that interests you, there is actually a documentary on YouTube about it. It's probably 20 minutes long or so, but it's so interesting.
So I knew there was something when I was talking about the episode. I was like, there's something weird about this. Like Tim's talked about it, I obviously know who Peter Frampton is, which, by the way, he always reminds me of the people who sing "I Believe in a Thing Called What's the Name?" Your other favorite album, why can't it? The Darkness.
The Darkness.
They remind me. The hair reminds me of that when I see the album cover. It feels like an album cover that Peter Frampton looks like an album cover that could in fact be The Darkness, but that's a debate for another time. And I was like, there's something weird there. And this is Joy going back to where Tim's talked about his Peter Frampton love on this podcast before, but also like my go back to our VH pop-up one video kind of thing when you were saying all like, oh, I've heard this before. I've only heard bits and pieces of it. Now, obviously, I love Peter Frampton as a musician. I like his music. I think it's probably playing in a CVS right now, Tim, probably.
I would imagine so.
We make jokes about it, but it probably is. It is my CVS music. But the thing about it is it's just very funny to me that I was like, there's something I remember specifically about this album that was, yes, it's iconic and there's something crazy happening. But now that Tim said that, I've heard that story about the airplane before, but I hadn't thought about it for a long time. I think that's my VH pop-up music video coming up. I'm sure "Baby I Love the Way" or something was fake. And there was a pop-up music video, or "Do You Feel Me Like We Do" or something. And that was the headline. Did you know Peter Frampton's guitar one time? Could you imagine though, like being the person like, oh, you just got handed this and you didn't know what you were giving, and then you were like Googling it and you're like, oh, this is kind of iconic. How did I get this again?
Yeah, as I said, it changed hands a number of times. It was a local player, had it for decades, and then it was the son who actually reached out to Peter Frampton and his people to return it to him.
I mean, that's amazing, though, in some capacity, because, like, I like that they got it back to him, but at the same time, I feel like the whole story even makes it cooler. Like, even just like in a plane, I know people died and all, but don't come for me, internet. People died and it was horrible, but like the whole way it played out and people made the effort to get it back to him, I think is what I was getting at. Not the fact that people died. Gosh, I'm going to get canceled, Tim. This podcast is going to get me canceled at some point. I'm going to say something real stupid and I'm going to get canceled. With that being said, I remembered there was something interesting about this album, and I'm glad you brought that up, Tim. I hadn't thought about it in a long time.
Yeah, I need to rewatch. I need to rewatch
the FBI.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that documentary again because it is really good. It's only 20 minutes long, but it's so good.
I love a good YouTube documentary. Some of them are the best, though. They really are.
Yeah, and as we know, YouTube has basically replaced TV at this point.
I swear to you, Tim, I watch probably way more YouTube hours than I ever should. I literally don't do anything else anymore.
We don't even have the ability to receive. I don't
have the attention span.
Yeah, we don't even have the ability to receive TV broadcasts in our house.
Joy technically does, but she ain't putting in that antenna out. It's a lot of work. Got a coax cable and all that kind of stuff. I only bring that up around times where there's something very important on ABC, like, I don't know, the Super Bowl or something. That's about it, Tim. That's the extent of it, but I technically do. So with that being said, we got distracted, but I'm glad you brought that up because I was like, there's something there about this album. But then when you said that, I was like, I've heard this story before. Could you imagine though being the one person who's like, here's your guitar?
Yeah.
That would be kind of crazy. All right, moving on. What's the next album we're going to speak of, sir?
Okay, this is from 1963. This is the chairman of the board. That would be Frank Sinatra. And this is his iconic recording, Frank Sinatra live at the Sands. The Sands being a Vegas casino that actually isn't there anymore. Long since demolished and replaced, I think, by the Mirage, which is now going to become the Hard Rock Hotel. But, iconic artists from those Rat Pack days of Vegas. I mean, he's got a huge orchestra there with Quincy Jones is conducting the orchestra.
Quincy Jones was behind this album.
Yeah, and Frank Sinatra was only 50 at the time. And he's doing Fly Me to the Moon, Got You Under My Skin. It's all good stuff.
The Copa Room, right?
Yeah.
The Copa Room. Is that the same Copacabana or is that different?
Well, no, that's Music and Passion because it's always in fashion.
At the Copacabana?
Yeah.
I've heard that before. Well, was that in Vegas or is that like a city that I don't know of?
Copacabana is a beach, I think. So I think it's in Barbados or something. It's not Vegas.
Oh, well, that's very white of me to not know where that is. But the Copa Room, that's where this is. I iconically know Frank Sinatra was at the Copa Room. Why is it called Copa then? Never really thought about it before. Copa sounds cool, though. It's like a cool name, but I don't know if it means anything at all. Does it mean anything, Tim?
I have absolutely no idea.
Well, Tim doesn't know either. Okay, well, I don't feel so bad. But anyway, I mean, Frank Sinatra's one of those interesting people. Now, funny story. One time, this is years ago, we may have been listening to music a little loud, and someone, a neighbor, back like 10, 15 years ago called a person the police on us, Tim. Guess what was playing when the police officer showed up? Frank Sinatra. And he looked at us and said, I have never had anyone call. It was very quiet, Tim. We were very quiet. Our neighbors were very just dramatic. And they said, the cop said, I am not writing anyone a ticket for listening for Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, blasting Frank Sinatra.
Like he was like, that's like, he's like, there, no, no. It was very funny. The cop was like, okay, well, first of all, your neighbor's a little dramatic. But second of all, I can't write anyone a ticket for listening to Frank Sinatra. That's where I draw the line. And by the way, for those who don't know, my husband is a huge Frank Sinatra fan. So that does play a lot in my house, which is also why I know about the Copa Room, the Sands Hotel, the casino. Frank Sinatra is one of those interesting people, though, that like I feel like the lore of him is even bigger than who he is as a person. And it always makes me wonder, because, obviously he makes jokes about like Dean Martin, and you got that whole thing with like Sammy Davis Jr. and all this stuff. It always makes you wonder, like, how much of that is real and how much of that is just stereotype they put out to sell albums.
Well, I mean, it's like you say, there's a lot of lore with Frank Sinatra. He was the chairman of the board. He had alleged ties with the mob. I mean, it was all kinds of stuff going on with Frank Sinatra back in the day. And, he's probably the ultimate crooner. I mean, he even had a Cadillac signature model car. I mean, it was all going on.
But I know, it just makes me wonder, though, is any of this true? Does anyone know Frank Sinatra? Is any of our listeners, like, an official fan? I don't actually know anything about him as, like, was Frank Sinatra ever married? I feel like he's married, like, 7 times.
I mean, I'd like to think so. I think Frank Sinatra really should have been married 7 times, even if he wasn't.
It feels like someone who was probably married. Wait, I need to Google this now. Now I want to know, how many times what? Frank Sinatra married. Okay, 4. We're not wrong, Tim. He was married 4 times. He had 4 spouses. Barbara Sinatra. Well, that sounds. Nancy Barbado. Don't come from the internet. Hold on. Oh, wait. No. He was married to Barbara Sinatra. Oh, Ava Gardner. I've heard that. Nancy Barbado and Mia Farrow. I've heard those names before. They seem accurate, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, moral story is we were right. He was married. He also dated Judy Garland, which doesn't surprise anyone. And then, of course, his daughter was Nancy Sinatra, who was also a musician.
Yeah, she did that song, These Boots Are Made for Walking.
Which is one of my go-to favorite karaoke songs. So
there we are. It's a classic.
It's amazing. So there you go. He feels like someone who should have been married a lot. I don't know if that makes any sense whatsoever, but 4 doesn't feel accurate to him. It feels like it should have been like 7.
At least.
Of course, he did like die, so that might be a factor.
Well, I mean, he lived a rich and long life.
For those who doesn't know, apparently he was born to Italian immigrants in New Jersey. Makes sense.
Sure.
When did he pass away? 95? Wow, I thought he died way earlier than that. I'm not going to lie to him. I don't know why I thought that, though. Maybe it's just because the James Dean allure of him, but he didn't wreck his car going like 100 like James Dean did or something.
No, that's a completely different story.
But it feels like that should have been something that happened to him as well. Once again, the lore. All right. Well, great album, Tim. And one time I did get the cops called on me for listening to him too loud, and the cop laughed and said, I can't write someone a ticket for looking to Frank Sinatra.
Well, there you go.
Somebody, you learn something new every day. I was in my early 20s. Okay, guys, give me a break. It's been like 15 years. Tim set fire to a nursing home. Joy got the cops called on her for listening to Frank Sinatra.
There you go.
I shouldn't say that because there's going to be like a thing out saying, did Tim O'Sullivan set fire to a nursing home?
I should clarify, we set off the fire alarm, we didn't set the place on fire.
The joke was Joy wasn't partying. She was just listening to music on a tiny little speaker, and my neighbor was very ridiculous. And Tim didn't actually set fire to a nursing home. All right, moving along. Could you imagine though? That's like on Google. Tim from No Name Music Cast set fire to a nursing home. All right, what's our next album?
Okay, this one is from 1976. Lots of modern music here, obviously.
Oh, of course.
This is Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band, and this is the album Live Bullet. Now, this again is another album, much like Frampton Came to Life, where you have an artist who's, doing pretty well, and then this live album completely launched them. It really sort of took him from being a regional act to a national act. And it's got some great tracks on it. He does a cover of Nutbush City Limits, and he also does Turn the Page on this here. And then I love the studio version of Turn the Page, but the live version of Turn the Page is especially powerful.
So, as an official Nutbush City Limits like aficionado, I said official way too many times in that sentence for that to be logical. But I have heard his version, and I do love it. It's pretty good. To be honest with you, I didn't know a man could do Nutbush City Limits this good. Now, ironically, we've talked about, I love Bob Seger. I think Bob Seger is probably one of the best, and maybe even, and somebody else say he's not that underrated, but I do think he is underrated in the sense that his music is so good, Tim. Yeah. Everything he does is spot on. When I think of this, I also think about he did that medley of the Bo Diddley medley. I think about that a lot. Looking Back is a great song. I've heard this before because I do love Traveling Man. I love Bob Seger. I will stand by this. I think he's one of the probably what I think is a person who is underrated in the sense that like people, they talk about he's a good artist, but he doesn't seem to get like, you know what I mean? It's not like he's the Elton John of the world or something. Like people don't talk about him that much, but I love Bob Seger. So I'm glad you brought this up. The interesting thing about Bob Seger though is that everything he does, I like a lot of musicians who are kind of like in his realm, but sometimes their songs kind of sound the same over and over and over again. I feel like he does a good job of each song kind of sounding like its own thing. It doesn't feel like the same pattern. And a lot of people in that genre happens a lot. So I think that's why he stands out to me.
Yeah, that's it. Even to this day, I will listen to Bob Seger songs. And, as we've said before, Night Moves by Bob Seger is probably one of the world's most perfect songs.
No, it is. We've said it is the most perfect song. So for those who don't know the lore that is Night Moves, and we and Tim have made jokes about this on the podcast, when you look at a song at its surface level, you think about like groove, hook, pop, sound, like everything in that cool kind of factor. Night Moves is all of it.
Yeah.
It really is. And if you disagree with us, well, you're wrong.
And more importantly than that, prominently features in a Knight Rider episode.
It was also on not American Dad. Oh God. It's not Family. It's Family Guy. There's one point in time where Meg's in the back of the car and they're driving and Night Moves is playing and she plays it. And he's like, "You know Night Moves?" And she's like, "Of course I know Night Moves." And he's like, "How do you know Night Moves?" She's like, "You've been listening to us since I was 8 years old." To her dad. Like, I always think of that too. But controversially, me and Tim have made that joke before. But I really do think if you were going to write like a master class on like hook, chorus, verse, like the way it sounds, that little too strong, could have used a few pounds, like the building of it, right, Tim? Yeah. I think Night Moves would be that song.
Yeah.
Have you ever played it in a band, though, Tim? Have you ever been forced to play it in a band?
No, I haven't. I've played some other songs by Bob Seger, but not that one.
So the thing about it is I don't think anyone should do it but Bob Seger.
I would agree with that.
And something about and then when he's like in that little, she was a black-haired beauty with big blonde. And something about the tone in his voice is different in this song, I think, than some of his other songs. Mm-hmm. And then sing way up high, that little cute little part. But there's something about Night Moves that I think if you look at the hook, you look at the chorus, you look at the rhythm, you look at even Tim could probably tell you more about the guitar than I ever could, but something about it. If I were going to write a master class on how you make a song that you know is going to be a hit, it's Night Moves.
Yeah.
It's Night Moves. And we've said that on this podcast for years. And if you don't believe it, just go back and listen. Even if you don't like it, you can hear how it structurally hits every kind of thing. And it does a really good job of edging people on, for lack of a better way of saying it, with the way the song is. So anyway, I'll get off my Night Moves high horse, but it is. Tim says maybe. I think it still is the best song. As far as like, if you're looking at it from a strictly like what's going to sell, what people like to hear, and honestly, just really good music, Night Moves.
Absolutely.
And we weren't, and Bob Seger didn't pay us for this episode, in case anybody's wondering. But if he wants to, we'd be happy to have him.
If he wants to stop by, I'd be delighted.
We stand by that Night Moves. It's the ultimate song. So come on, Bob Seger. I would love to actually see Bob Seger live. I really do think I would too.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he's still touring, to be honest.
He probably made enough money that he doesn't have to. He's sitting up in a mansion somewheres and, performing Night Moves at 3 a.m. Neighbor calls and the cops are like, nah, you're performing Night Moves. You're fine.
Yeah.
I'm the only person I know who got the cops called him while frozen Frank Sinatra. Like, are you kidding me? Anyway, what's our next album, Tim?
Okay, this comes from 1984. This is the Talking Heads and the live album Stop Making Sense. Now, this is the soundtrack to the film Stop Making Sense. And this is a film which saw a reissue very recently. It was remastered and upscaled in 4K and all that kind of stuff. And Hannah and I went to see it in a theater, and it is really, really good. And this doesn't quite capture the same majesty of seeing the concert video, but it is still really, really good. And the other thing is that even though this is 1984, it was a digital recording. And even to this day, the sound quality of this concert is really good.
I mean, to be fair, Tim talked about him and Hannah going seeing. He said it was amazing. He loved it. If you haven't heard her talk about it on the podcast, we'll go back and listen to a few episodes. You'll hear him say it. I will say, Psycho Killer, Qu'est-ce que c'est? Lives rent free in my head. At least once a week, I think I sing that to myself, Tim. Just, I don't know why. I mean, obviously, you got Burning in the House, you got Swamp, you got some other songs, but I always be going, Psycho Killer.
Qu'est-ce que c'est?
I mean, I don't even know. I don't think they're French, but whatever they put in that song, Tim, it's very interesting. And I do think it's been used a few different times because it was used in a few different movies that are about like psycho killers. And there is something very iconic about how the song is literally Psycho Killer, Qu'est-ce que c'est? Ba, 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 ba. It really lures into you like, I don't even know what the song's supposed to be about. Is it about a psycho killer? Is it about saying...
I have absolutely no idea.
But I could see how you could totally use this in TV shows, movies. Like there's that kind of iconic one where the guy is like, he's like the killer in the movie and he's listening to Hip to Be Square, right, Tim, with the headphones on. Like I could see this being a very iconic song that could be used in a very funny way. So not a funny way, but I mean, I guess in a very interesting juxtaposition of someone actually being a psycho killer and qu'est-ce que c'est, So it is, and as much as the song lives free in your head, they kind of wrote a song that I think could be used in so many different movies and TV shows that they probably made enough money off it to live for the rest of their life.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think David Byrne is still doing very well. Now, David Byrne is still touring. He recently appeared on the Colbert Late Show, and prior to that, he appeared on the NPR Tiny Desk. Now, he's not still with Talking Heads, Tina Weymouth, etc. He's just going out as David Byrne, but he's still out there performing in some capacity.
Now I want to know though, because like Psycho Killer, qu'est-ce que c'est, which means like what is it, right, Tim? What are now I want to know what the song's actually about.
Well, bring up the lyrics, Joy, and have a look.
I can't see. Okay, hold on. Let's give it a Goog. Because I know qu'est-ce que c'est means what is it in French. Those who don't know that. And then there is another part that's in French. Let me look up the lyrics. Let's see here. So
Joy is live Googling as we speak.
I can't seem to face up the facts. I'm tense and nervous. I can't relax. I can't sleep because my bed's on fire. Don't touch me. I'm a live wire. Psycho Killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? I mean, I guess is he saying he's the psycho killer and you should run away from him?
See, you can't always work out what the song's about. It could be abstract, could be a metaphor, could be something that's just very personal to David Byrne.
Well, then there's the also part where it says like the other part in French, the CQ Jeff. Oh, I think that's saying what I did tonight, right? Because SOIR dash law would be tonight. So what did he do that night, Tim?
I honestly have no idea.
Because it goes and then it's like the CQ fa sort, because SOR, for those who don't know, Joy does know quite a bit of French. The SOR, so he's saying he did something bad that night, Tim. He did something bad that night. So maybe he is the psycho killer.
I mean, it's possible. You never know with Mr. David Byrne what he's up to in his mind.
Well, what's the next lyric? Hold on. I don't actually know what this part means in English. I'm going to Google it. I'm setting out for glory. Yeah, he's a killer, Tim.
Oh, no.
He's the psycho killer. I mean, how often do you say I'm setting out for glory after saying what I did tonight?
There you go. I mean, it's all going on here.
Oh, okay. Resilient mom. Okay, so that means realizing my power, throw myself towards glory, or I'm setting out for glory, depending on what translation. Yeah, he killed someone, Tim. He's a psycho killer.
Ah, dear.
Darn
Crikey.
it. I was just curious, though, because I've never actually looked that far into it. I mostly just yell, "Kiss-kiss-say, fa-fa-fa-fa." A great example of a song that we just sing at full level, Tim, with no understanding of what we're singing. Like we could put this on a list of songs that they probably weren't saying. I mean, to be fair, though, in their defense, the name of the song is Psycho Killer. So we should have known. It just sounds kind of happy. I mean, there is a part where it's yelling, run, 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 run away. So,
I mean, yeah, there you go. David Byrne, all kinds of things are going on.
I feel as though I should have predicted he was the psycho killer based off just the name of the song. It's kind of like when they talk about Darth Vader and Vader means father in German, Tim. It's literally telling you he was his father, Tim. As someone who doesn't watch Star Wars at all, I do find it funny when people point that out.
There you are. It's hiding in plain sight, as they say.
All right. Well, what's the next album?
Okay, so we've probably got time for one more.
Because Joyce talked about everything but the music. Continue.
Yes, and we're going to close out with an album which is legendarily a studio album, though marketed as live. It's probably 97% studio. This will be from 1975, and this is the album Kiss Alive. Now, again, much like Peter Frampton and much like some of the other albums that we spoke of, they'd had a reasonable career up to this point. They'd released music. But in 75, they released this double live album. It's got Strutter on there, Cold Gin, a bunch of other of their hits.
Deuce,
and this really
hell.
launched them into being the megastars that they became.
Yeah, you've got like Deuce, Hotter Than. I used to own this album. This is one of my favorite. I did go through my Kiss kind of like I joke about my AC/DC phase. The thing about Kiss is I kind of find them interesting because I appreciate that they know exactly who they are and they never try to market themselves as anything else. I've said that very honestly on this podcast, and I love that. This album probably did. I mean, that opening with like Deuce or Strutter, like where it goes from Deuce to Strutter, is very iconic in my brain because I used to listen to this album pretty regularly. And they're one of those bands, and I kind of find it funny, you're like, it's like 97%. Like I said, is there do we need to start like an official thing where you could call this 100% organic apple if it meets this number? Like, I feel like you need that to define what a live album is for it. But it's just an album that I love. The thing about it is, though, is I find, like I said, I find them to be very interesting. Now, some of the people in the band are not my favorite people in the world, and they've done some weird stuff here recently. But when I was doing the episode where we are talking about the Rolling Stone 500 greatest albums of all time, I know this was on there.
Hmm.
I know it was. I remember it being a thing. And I've listened to this probably album like 37 times at least, 3,700 times. Um, and I can see the album cover. It's got that kind of watercolor thing behind it. It's on my Spotify right now, Tim. I actually am happy you brought this one in because I think that this is probably 70s Kiss is my favorite Kiss.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kiss all through the ages. I do like God Gave Rock and Roll to You too from the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journeys soundtrack because he says sometimes you got a gift, you have a role, and that role's name is rock and roll.
It's
Classic,
also
classic line.
Slade had a band called Slade, Joy's favorite, had an album called Alive too. So that stands out in my brain. I don't know if they're related, but I do remember that. But yeah, I will say that Deuce Strutter is probably one of my favorite kind of like if you're looking at an album, like the way it plays into it and getting you a hook. I think that's a great way to start an album. So that's why this one stands out to me. I will say Kiss is one of those bands that I always say I'm going to go see, Tim, and then I never pay to see them.
Well,
Like I kind of want to, but I
they
just
are no
don't.
longer touring. They famously had their farewell gig a year or two ago. They've sold
Uh-huh.
their likenesses to the same company that's doing the ABBA Voyage concert, though we haven't seen that yet.
Now, I will say though, Tim, many artists have said they're never going to perform again, Tim, until some type of royalty check comes in. So take it for what it is.
I mean, that's true, but they're a little older at this point, and they've performed for like some of
Famous
these
last words.
Kiss conventions, but I don't know as a touring entity we'll ever see Kiss again.
It's funny that we were talking about my Gen Z employee earlier. I was making jokes about music and stuff. She went to Myrtle Beach, Tim, and it rained the entire time she was there here recently. So she was writing me saying, "What should I do?" I told her to go to the Kiss Cafe with the shoes out front. I don't think she knew what that was, but I told her to go there. I said it would be fun.
Yeah, sadly, it closed about 10 years ago.
Oh, so I sent her on a wild goose chase that didn't even exist. She didn't want to go anyway. From what I gathered, she went. I told her she should get an airbrush T-shirt, Tim, because like I was younger, like the weird airbrush T-shirts that were always selling on like the stores, like you can get your couple name or whatever there. I said, go be iconic and go to a Kids Cafe and an airbrush T-shirt. I sent her on a wild goose chase that probably doesn't exist anymore. But that's what I remember the last time I went to. I actually haven't been to Myrtle Beach since 2009. So
There we are.
take that for
I
what
was
it
there in
is.
April.
I mean, I've been to like Charlotte, North Carolina. So, for perspective, for those who don't understand what me and Tim are talking about, there's an area that's in South Carolina. It's called Myrtle Beach. You got Northern, you got Southern. Southern is where all the parties are happening. Northern is where people who are older go to. And it's just a beach, but it's also got like a boardwalk area and different things like that. It's right on the border of North Carolina. The last time I was there, Tim, I was mostly there to go to Carowinds, which is also on that borderline. I haven't really been to Myrtle Beach since I was 2009. It's not my favorite beach. There's better beaches.
There
There
are,
are
but
better
it's
beaches.
classic because it's such a tourist destination.
It is. It is. And Joy hasn't been there so long that she sits on a wild goose chase of something that doesn't even exist. She's probably sitting there going, "What the heck are you talking about?" I don't think she knew what Kids Cafe was anyway, Tim. But it was so funny. She said, "Hey, I'm going to be in the beach." So she was flying to Texas. So she was going to be out of Charlotte, the airport, Tim, and she was going to be in Myrtle Beach for like 24 hours before, then 48 hours, whatever, before she flew out. And she said, "What should I do at the beach?" And I went, "Go to the beach." And then everybody in the office just started laughing. And then I was just like, well, it's to rain the entire time we're there. I said, well, go to the boardwalk. And it's a very nice boardwalk, which is actually where the cafe used to be, the Kiss Cafe. So
Yeah.
for perspective. Now I kind of want to go back to Myrtle Beach. I might have to make that happen this summer, Tim. Just
There
out
we
of,
are. I've inspired you.
I would rather just go to Carowinds, but to be honest with you, I don't know if I want to ride any more roller coasters. I don't like too many things anymore that get me worked up, but I do love a roller coaster.
I, I'm I'm too old for that, and plus my motion sickness is too bad, and my back is dodgy and stuff. So roller coasters are no longer for me.
Makes you sound incredibly old, Tim. So for those who don't know, Tim's 97. When you said that earlier about, oh, modern day music, because we were talking about the music from the 70s, I was like, to be fair, we one time talked about an album from like, what was it? It was like literally, what was it, Tim? It was like the medieval times in England. So for us, that was pretty modern. Like, did we do an episode where we literally talked about an album from like 1600s or something?
I believe that to be the case, yes.
Before America even existed. So with that being said, and before we get into it, I'm going to leave you with this. If you were American and you've never traveled outside of the United States, I think the funniest thing that ever happened to me, Tim, and I've noticed this consistently, is when you travel outside of the United States, and America is not the oldest country. But you travel to countries that are much older, you'll be like, oh, look, there's the Parthenon. And then you'll go 2 feet later, you're like, and there's a McDonald's. Like, you don't realize how the old culture is weaved in and out of the actual city. So if you've not traveled and done that, I say you do that. Music from the 70s is modern, and there is an episode once where me and Tim talked about the 1600s. So take it for what it is. With that being said, Tim, what would you like to leave the people?
Just be kind to everyone that you meet.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.